Hello and welcome to the Dailies. Several major stories dominated international headlines today, led by the anticipated meeting between Donald Trump and Volodymyr Zelenskyy in Washington and the announcement of Donald Trump's planned summit with Vladimir Putin in Budapest. The Middle East also remained at the center of global attention, with renewed diplomatic efforts and heightened regional tensions shaping the news agenda. In the United States, the indictment of John Bolton, Trump's former national security advisor, added another layer of political drama. All American press reported on President Donald Trump's renewed diplomatic push to end the war in Ukraine. All reports centered on Trump's plan to meet Russian President Vladimir Putin in Hungary, signaling another attempt at direct negotiation after a lengthy phone call between the two leaders. And many outlets highlighted that this comes as Trump prepares to host Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, who seeks expanded U.S. military aid. The New York Times examined the president's latest diplomatic push, noticing a recurring pattern. Trump floats hardline measures, then pivots towards diplomacy with Putin. The piece cites critics who warn this rewards Moscow without results, but Trump frames it as strategic peacekeeping, emboldened by his Middle East ceasefire success. The piece also questions whether the summit will deliver real progress or repeat past deadlocks. Other voices in the U.S. were more optimistic, arguing that Russia's military and geopolitical weakness presents a rare strategic opening for President Donald Trump. In his commentary on the Wall Street Journal, Rahm Emanuel draws parallels to Trump's recent success, pressuring Benjamin Netanyahu into a ceasefire. He contends that Trump could similarly exploit Vladimir Putin's vulnerabilities. The author details Russia's battlefield failures, diplomatic isolation, and also economic decline, portraying Putin as weaker than at any point in decades. Emanuel suggests Trump has the leverage to push for a decisive shift in the war, but questions whether political instincts or personal affinities are holding him back. The piece frames the moment as a defining test, whether Trump will seize a geopolitical opportunity or allow a weakened Russia to regroup. Newsweek dissects the shockwaves caused by President Donald Trump's unexpected phone call with President Vladimir Putin, which abruptly cast doubt on expanded U.S. aid to Ukraine. The analysis highlights how, after signaling support for supplying Tomahawk missiles to Kiev, Trump pivoted to announcing a new summit with Putin in Budapest. The piece highlights the recurring same pattern the New York Times talked about, as analysts and Ukrainian officials see the move as part of a familiar pattern: talk tough, then lean into diplomacy. Critics fear it could delay or even derail critical support ahead of President Volodymyr Zelenskyy's White House visit. The piece frames the call as both a tactical maneuver by Putin to stall aid and a test of Trump's foreign policy instincts, raising serious questions about U.S. strategy in Ukraine. From the Russian perspective, Russia's initiative and tough stance led to this diplomatic move. Izvestia highlights the pivotal 2.5-hour call between President Trump and President Putin, pointing to it being their 8th of the year and describing it as setting the stage for the summit in Budapest. The Russian publication explains Moscow initiated the conversation focused on Ukraine and U.S. plans to supply Tomahawk missiles to Kiev. Apparently, Putin warned this would damage bilateral ties, and Trump hinted he would weigh those concerns in his meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. The report goes on to say that Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán, positioning Hungary as mediator, quickly moved to prepare the summit. The piece concludes the call could shape the trajectory of the war, either reviving diplomatic negotiations or slowing U.S. aid. It also views Trump framing the exchange as productive, as signaling a possible shift towards negotiation over escalation. News of the summit didn't seem to sit well with the Europeans. European media reacted with alarm, calling the Budapest summit a humiliation to the EU influence and a diplomatic win for Viktor Orban. Many saw it as sidelining Brussels in a war on its doorstep, while others warned it risks legitimizing Russia while weakening Ukraine's position. The Telegraph called it diplomatic blow to Europe, sidelining the EU at a critical moment in the Ukraine conflict. The analysis views the summit as a political triumph for Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban, underscoring his strategic closeness to Trump. Long seen as Putin's closest ally in the EU, Orban has often clashed with Volodymyr Zelenskyy, opposed sanctions, and positioned himself as a peace broker, but outside of Brussels' consensus. The piece also highlights the summit reflects fractures within the bloc, as Hungary continues to break ranks on energy and foreign policy. The piece concludes that for Orban, it's a moment of elevated global status, and for Brussels, a stinging reminder of its waning influence. American media also focused on the indictment of former National Security Advisor John Bolton, with some framing it as part of a broader pattern of Donald Trump's selective prosecutions of political opponents. Bolton now faces 18 counts of allegedly mishandling classified information via a private email account, a case stemming from a Biden-era probe, but reportedly pushed forward under political pressure. Others also questioned whether justice is being served or weaponized in a growing clash between law and politics. The Economist examines the serious legal trouble facing Bolton as prosecutors allege Bolton shared sensitive notes with family via personal email and also messaging apps, later compromised by Iranian hackers. The article notes that while the case is politically charged, the evidence here appears stronger than in other recent prosecutions. Bolton's reputation as a seasoned Washington insider may work against him as prosecutors cite his own past criticism of others. The piece frames the case as both personal and precedent-setting, with potentially severe consequences. News of the tensions in the Middle East over the implementation of the Gaza peace plan stayed in the headlines in the region. The Times of Israel details the intensifying efforts by Israel to recover the bodies of 19 remaining hostages in Gaza amid growing tensions with Hamas. The online publication reveals that an international search team, including U.S., Turkish, and Egyptian, and also Qatari personnel, has entered the Strip, using Israeli intelligence to locate burial sites. Hamas claims it needs heavy equipment to retrieve additional remains, a claim Jerusalem disputes. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is weighing tougher measures, including limiting aid, and also has secured support from U.S. President Donald Trump. The piece warns the dispute threatens to strain the truce and complicate the broader White House peace plan for Gaza. Haaretz published a powerful analysis that examines the looming political battle facing Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu after the Gaza war, which is avoiding a formal investigation into the failures of October 7th Hamas attack. The piece highlights that with a ceasefire in place now, Israel's Supreme Court has given the government 30 days to establish an independent state commission of inquiry, which is the strongest legal mechanism available. It goes on to say that Netanyahu, who is accused of evading accountability throughout his career, is expected to stall or weaken the process, possibly via a government-controlled inquiry. The piece also concludes that for bereaved families and much of the public, the stakes are immense, and the coming weeks will test whether Israel's judiciary can uphold democratic checks and compel accountability at the highest level of power. And we'll end with the British media, which continue to cover the China spy trial fallout. MI5's public statements and also political debate over the case have kept it in the headlines. And the Times cartoon, as you can see, serves as a sharp visual commentary on the growing government of the UK's scandal involving Chinese espionage. The massive red dragon symbolizing government of China looms outside Downing Street, holding a sign that reads, "China spy case." Also, as you can see, British officials appear alarmed and concerned, reflecting the political pressure and unease surrounding the issue. The dragon's sheer size, as you can see, highlights how the espionage scandal has overshadowed domestic politics. And the cartoon underscores how the scandal is far too big to ignore, and it is politically destabilizing. That's it for today. Thanks for watching.